What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Courtside TV. Today, I'm joined by Logan and someone new to the channel, one of our good friends, Jackson. And today, we're just going to be talking MLB. Spring training is almost upon us. Pitchers and catchers report here in a couple days. And we got a couple big things coming up so far that we need to talk about. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the proposed DH rule that was actually voted against today, which I'm personally very happy about. We're just going to kind of give our thoughts on the DH rule. So I guess I can start real quick. I think the DH is like the DH rule. What they were proposing was to add a DH to the NL. So there would be no more pitchers batting at all. It would be all DHs. I get the whole health factor that you're paying pitchers to come in and pitch and that you don't want them to have to worry about running on the base paths like Masahiro Tanaka did last year, and he hurt both of his hamstrings. I get that. But they're professional athletes being paid millions and millions and millions of dollars a year. They should be able to run 90 feet, 360 feet at most. Also, DHs, it makes the game a lot more strategic, especially come World Series time and interleague play. If you have someone like Chris Sale, who's pitching the game of his life going into the seventh inning, and he's up with two runners on, in the bottom of the seventh. No, it'd be the top of the seventh because they'd be in the NL. And you have to make that decision if you're going to leave him in and basically get either a guaranteed out or a very good chance at a double play. Or are you going to take him out for a 50-50 base hit potentially and have to go to your bullpen who has been shaky all series, or they may or may not perform? I just think it adds a certain element of you have to play to your strengths. And if a pitcher's pitching very well, are you going to take the chance and pull him for a bullpen that you don't know how they're going to pitch that day? Or are you going to leave him in, maybe cost your team a couple of runs, and then down the line that cost you? So we can go ahead and go over to Logan and get his thoughts on the DH rule.
Yeah, so I mean, definitely with like Connor was talking about the strategic part of the game, and it's always been a unique thing of baseball. And my thing with it, I understand both sides of it. I understand me and Connor have talked about how, there's been a lot of talk lately about how people want baseball to be more fun and more exciting and more high scoring games, stuff like that. But the thing about baseball is, I mean, just like any other sport, you're gonna have some games where it's like a bunch of home runs and it's maybe a 10-8 score or something like that, and then you're going to have pitching duels where it's like 2-1 final or something. But that happens in every sport, and we saw that in the Super Bowl, obviously a low scoring game. But I think it makes baseball unique. But then the other side to it that argues yes, they should do the DH and the NL too, is there's no other sport that has a different rule for each. So for example, like in the NBA, there's no rule that separates the East from the West, or no rule that separates in the NFL the AFC from the NFC. So it's kind of, when you look at it in the broad scheme of sports, it's kind of interesting and kind of weird, obviously, to people who maybe don't follow baseball. So I see both sides to it. I don't really think, I mean, I'm not a super hardcore baseball fan, so I personally wouldn't be like, oh, like, no, this is horrible. Like, it wouldn't really bother me too much. And, so that's pretty much what I think about it. So I'll let Jackson talk about his thoughts next.
Yeah, so like what Logan was talking about, how it kind of makes like the league more unique with like the different leagues, how like no other sport is like that. And I've seen like pitchers, like for example, Kevin Gossman, who is on the Orioles, who pitched in the AL East against like the Boston Red Sox, New York Yankees, all those powerhouses, who like he got shelled like every start, like he just got destroyed, and he didn't have really good numbers over there. And then when he got traded at the like around the All-Star break to the Atlanta Braves, which going from the American League to the National League and having to like no longer have to face against like a designated hitter, his numbers were definitely a lot better going from the American League to the National League. So I don't know, it kind of, in a way, kind of just like makes like the pitchers kind of like their numbers definitely go up whenever like National League pitchers, like if you look at Jacob deGrom and Clayton Kershaw, like their numbers are definitely like I mean, there's always like a few like Chris Sale and all that, but like I feel like National League pitchers are definitely have better stats and better numbers than American League pitchers because they have that one easy out. Granted, there's always pitchers that are freaking really good hitters like Madison Bumgarner and that one dude on the Rockies. I forgot his name, but he like it just makes pitching easier in the National League, in my opinion. So that's what I gotta say about that.
Okay, so kind of going off this DH rule about like how they're trying to improve baseball. I kind of want to talk about for a couple of minutes what you could do. Like if you were the not owner of baseball, commissioner of baseball for a year and you could call meetings and try and make any rule change you want happen. Like whether it be to draw in more people, to make the game more entertaining or what. Personally, the first thing that I would do is take away all of the negative media that baseball players get for being themselves. Like, look at what Bryce Harper was when he came into the MLB. He was a charismatic person that everyone hated because of how cocky he was. But look at all the kids that either started playing baseball or started watching baseball because of how Bryce Harper acted. And then they shut him down and they put him into that system of baseball is a respectful sport. You have to like abide by these rules all the time. And I think they're getting better about it with like the endorsements of Francisco Lindor and Javier Baez. Like the entire like postseason theme, like commercials this past year were like let the boys play. And it was MLB legend saying that. And I think that could help so much in the MLB because like whether you like it or not, the MLB's dying. Like I think I read that the average fan is a 58-year-old male. That's not a great recipe for success. I think if you let players, it's kind of like the NBA. NBA players, they can dress how they want walking in the stadium. They are some of the funniest people on Twitter and social media. And they just provide a lot of comedy outside of the sport as well. How often do you see Mike Trout making media headlines for something he said or wore? There's not enough media exposure in the MLB to get it on the map. Like, because the NBA boomed because of that, personally, from like a national sport thing. Like NBA has obviously always been big because basketball is big, but it's gotten bigger as they've allowed players to have more freedom and kind of dictate like the league rules in a way. So Logan, what would you do to improve baseball?
Yeah, so definitely, I mean, the media makes everything, right? I mean, with every sport, NFL, NBA, MLB, the media makes it. And I actually read something the other day that I thought was a really good point. And you talked about media. This kind of goes hand in hand. I'm going to talk about like the marketing for it because I read a conversation some people had on Twitter the other day about the NHL. And Connor, you can, I know you can attest to this too. The NHL, I don't watch it a ton. I'm a Detroit Red Wings fan, but when I do watch it, like the NHL is fun to watch. It's very high action, high paced, very high action, high paced sport. And it's a lot of fun to watch, especially the playoffs. But the problem is the marketing, and I feel like baseball has a similar problem to that. Baseball's a much
All right, so technical issue. All right, here we go.
okay. I think I'm back. There we go. I think baseball's obviously a much bigger sport than NHL, but I think the marketing, and Connor, you kind of talked about, in the NBA, you got LeBron James, and NFL, you got Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, all these big names that you always hear about, always see about. And for a casual sports fan, they might know who Mike Trout or Bryce Harper is, but beyond that, not a whole lot. And, you talked about that and just the marketing of it. Um, yeah, it's just, I feel like the MLB needs to, and not necessarily, this isn't necessarily like talking about a game rule that needs to be changed, but I think the MLB needs to push the marketing of their top tier players a lot more. Like, be advertising, Bryce Harper and Mike Trout. And I know they have commercials and stuff, but like, I don't know. Like you talked about, you turn on ESPN, you're going to see right now, the only MLB thing ESPN will talk about right now is Bryce Harper and Manny Machado signing. That's it. That's all you'll see if you turn on ESPN. And everything else is Tom Brady and LeBron James and whatever, college basketball, whatever. So I really think it's just a marketing thing. And I mean, I know there's people like you said, the 58-year-old male will sit down and watch a baseball game, but there's a lot of people that just won't sit down and watch a baseball game. Um, and yeah, I don't know. It's really a tough topic to kind of like talk about and like gauge how it's dying, I guess you could say. Um, and maybe it's because baseball, baseball is that sport as a kid everyone plays growing up, right? It's like the first sport most kids get into. And I don't know if it's because kids play it growing up and get burnt out of it. They don't want to, they might enjoy playing, but not watching. And yeah, so basically what I would say is just the marketing of it. I think they should push those big names a lot more.
Yeah, like y'all said, like if y'all think baseball is dying, I mean, I agree with that. But I mean, at the end of the day, like it's baseball. Like, there's only so much you can change. Like they're already trying to put in like a pitch clock. Like there's like 20 seconds in between pitches. Like they're trying to speed up the game because like obviously like their viewing count is really down because people just think watching baseball is boring. But at the end of the day, it's it's baseball. Like there's only so much you can change. Like I guess if you put like a DH in the National League, then you get more runs, and everyone loves runs. But like Logan was saying, how like the marketing, like yeah, they need to market, like like the good players like Bryce Harper. And in my opinion, like this generation of baseball players, like the young guys, like Ronald Acuna Jr., Juan Soto, guys like even like Francisco Lindor, Corey Seager, like those guys are like really exciting to watch. And like um guys like Javier Baez. And I mean, I feel like if just most sports fans that aren't really like they don't really get into baseball, I feel like if they're kind of brought into baseball by watching those guys because they're really exciting to watch, whether you're a baseball fan or not, then I feel like that will kind of get more people interested in the sport. And if I mean, if they just watch those guys, then I feel like baseball won't really be dying because guys like Ronald Acuna, who could potentially win an MVP, who is literally out there as a kid. He's not even 21 years old yet. And he's literally just dropping bombs, just making great plays in the outfield. He's really fast and it's just exciting to watch. And there's a handful of guys like that in the league now that I mean, in my opinion, like I think baseball is fun to watch. Like, I mean, I'm one of the only few people, I guess, but I mean, I just like watching those guys, and I feel like if people give those guys and other guys like that a chance, then I mean, I don't think baseball will die.
Yeah, and Connor, before you go, I just want to add to that. So talking about like exciting players like Jackson was talking about, and I also want to talk about like players that kind of have like a swagger to them, like if you think about so growing up, Connor obviously knows this. Manny Ramirez, I feel like, was just like he just walked around with like he just carried himself a certain way and like he might have been a little, seemed a little cocky sometimes, but he just had a swagger about him. And I also want to bring up over the last probably 3 or 4 years of baseball, one of the most known, probably like games, hits, whatever, is when Jose Bautista hit the home run and threw a bat in the air. And I'm sure there's some like very traditional fans that are like, oh, that's like cocky. Like, I don't like when kids do that. But that's one of the biggest moments people remember of the last 3 to 4 years of baseball. So I understand there's a certain point where it's like, okay, like you don't want guys, going out on a limb saying things and doing this stuff. But like that excitement that Jackson was talking about can come in the form of a player who's really, really talented. And, there's going to be guys that are super humble, never do anything, never say anything. But I also like want to relate that to a guy like Kawhi Leonard. You never see Kawhi Leonard in headlines unless he puts up good stats because he's just no one wants to talk. Like, no offense, no one wants to talk to Kawhi Leonard. He's just not an exciting guy. So, like Jackson said, the exciting players, the guys with swag, that they're the ones that I really think can bring it back. And when you have someone like Bryce Harper, there's people over here that hate Bryce Harper, and there's people over here that love Bryce Harper. But either way, it's bringing up discussion about him and about the sport. So I think guys like him definitely help the sport, and more people talking about it and watching it.
Yeah, and kind of talking about that Jose Bautista point, because I kind of wanted to bring up something like that. What's the other big thing that the baseball world remembers about a relatively forgetful Blue Jays team over the years. Jose Bautista getting punched in the face by Odor. It all goes back to having that flair. And if the MLB can embrace that, I'm not saying embrace like brawling, obviously, would add a very interesting element to the game. But like Bryce Harper charging the mound, Jose Bautista getting punched in the face, all the Javier Baez and Odor stuff over the years, like it adds to the excitement level. Jackson, going back to what you said about the pace of play stuff, like making sure trying to speed up games. Would you guys agree that an average baseball game is 2.5, 3 hours? Somewhere in that range. 3+? Okay. So let's just say around 3 hours. So I get that it's not nonstop action. I get that. But why can people sit down and watch a football game that takes 2.5 hours where half of that is commercial breaks and not complain about it? Like, that's my problem with that argument. Is if you want to argue that it's not as entertaining to watch because it's not as fast-paced, okay, I can agree with that. It's not as fast-paced. But you can't sit there and argue that baseball games are too long when they're around the same time as a football game, like, on air. Because they are. Like, the Super Bowl was 5 hours. Around 5 hours. Yeah, obviously including halftime and commercials and stuff, but still. Like, a World Series doesn't take that long. No other sport takes that long. And I get that they do halftime show and stuff, but still, I hate that argument of like they want to make the game quicker because all you're doing is taking away, like, okay, limited amount of mound visits, obviously, because you can't go out there and talk to your pitcher every other batter because that's ridiculous. But trying to limit how much time like a batter can readjust and stuff, that's just, it seems kind of pointless to me. So yeah, I think that's kind of all we got to talk about MLB rule changes. So make sure you guys – oh, no, Logan, go ahead. Okay, Jackson.
Yeah, there's one thing we didn't talk about with one of the new rule changes. They're making it now to where, like, relief pitchers are required to face at least 3 batters, which in my – like, they're just trying to do that to speed up the game because obviously pitching changes, like, they can take forever. And obviously, like, if I'm just a casual sports fan just watching baseball – and, like, it takes, like, 5 minutes to change pitchers. And, like, it's just, like, I'm watching, like, the Rockies against, like, the Blue Jays. I'm just like, dude, like, why am I watching this right now? So, like, I'm going to change the channel. So, obviously, they're trying to cut down on that. But in my opinion, I mean, I'm obviously biased because I played baseball my whole life. And, like, I don't have a problem with it. I can sit down and watch baseball all day. And that kind of takes out, like, a big strategic part of the game because – honestly, there's guys that are on teams, like left-handed pitchers, that literally enter a game just to face one batter and then they're pulled. But that's just a part of the game. They just want to get those matchups. They want to get Josh Hader with this big slider against a left-handed hitter like Mike Moustakas or something like that. Because, like, it just makes baseball baseball. And in my opinion, I just hate how they're trying to put in all these new rules because they want – I understand it's a business and they need – as like they don't want baseball to die, but it's kind of changing the game in my opinion. So I mean, I'm against all these rules. I just want baseball to stay baseball, and yeah.
Yeah, I actually forgot about that because I actually talked to extensively about that, and when we were talking about it, it takes away that strategic element because, like you said, if you bring in a guy to face that left-handed batter, that's someone like Josh Hader, then the opposing manager can just, if the next guy is like, I can't even think of an example off the top of my head. Who's a bad left-handed hitter that's a great fielder? I don't know. Insert someone that's a great fielder but not. Okay, Jackson.
I mean, I'd say someone that doesn't really play anymore, but I'd say like Prince Fielder.
Okay, yeah. So you have like a Prince Fielder that you could throw that's coming up after that. Why not just pinch hit someone with a great right-handed hitter that's going to shell that lefty? And there's nothing you can do about it because then it becomes a chess match if you can pull him. Like, who are you going to go to next? Because then you're depleting your bullpen, but you're depleting your bench. Jackson.
And that just makes like a good bullpen really valuable, because if they just take away, if they take away where you have to just where a pitcher has to face at least 3 batters, that kind of takes out a big part of having a really in-depth bullpen, to where now you can just have like just 2 or 3 decent arms and you can just get by. If you have the teams that have like from the top to bottom list really good arms, and they have really good lefties, and it just really kind of, I don't know the word I'm looking for, but it just makes the bullpen not as valuable, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I get that totally. So I think that's gonna wrap it up for our like changes and just rules going into the MLB season. So make sure you guys subscribe to Jackson on YouTube. I'm gonna leave a link to his channel in the description. Got some great gaming videos, and we're gonna have a couple more MLB videos with us three going up. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel, like, and comment what you guys want to see next. Until next time, peace.